History holds secrets that refuse to stay buried. We are about to journey through 30 of the most baffling relics ever unearthed, objects that stand in stark defiance of our established timeline. This exploration will challenge everything you thought you knew about ancient human history, revealing a past far more complex and mysterious than any textbook describes. How did a complex mechanical computer exist over 2,000 years ago, and why does a map from the 1500s appear to show a continent buried under miles of ice? These are not just curiosities, they are genuine puzzles left behind by our ancestors. What does it truly mean to discover something that should not exist? The mystery begins not in a grand tomb or a lost city, but along the banks of a small creek in Texas. In 1936, a couple walking near the town of London made a startling discovery. A piece of rock had broken open, revealing what appeared to be the wooden handle of a tool. When they pried it free, they found a complete hammer encased within the solid stone. This object, now known as the London hammer, looks for all the world like a common tool from the late 1800s. Its head is made of iron, and it sits snugly on a weathered wooden handle. The problem is the rock itself. The concretion that entombed it was identified as coming from the Cretaceous period, a layer of stone that dates back over 100 million years. That is a time when dinosaurs roamed the earth, a world utterly devoid of human life, let alone human toolmakers. How could a modern-looking hammer become sealed inside a rock that formed in an age before humans existed? The composition of the hammerhead adds another layer to the puzzle. Analysis suggests it is not simply cast iron but a curiously pure form of the metal, lacking the bubbles and slag typical of historical forges. This has led some to propose it is a genuine out-of-place artifact, an object from a technologically advanced civilization that existed in the deep, unimaginable past. The implications are staggering, suggesting a cycle of human civilization rising and falling long before our recorded history began. Skeptics, however, offer a more grounded, though no less fascinating, explanation. They point to the process of concretion, where minerals can rapidly cement around an object, hardening into stone in a matter of decades, not millennia. They propose the hammer is exactly what it appears to be, a tool from the 19th century that was lost and then quickly enveloped by the unique chemical conditions of the creek bed. Yet, even this theory does not fully silence the questions. The rock's specific mineral makeup and the sheer completeness of the encasement continue to fuel debate. The London hammer stands as a perfect introduction to these prehistoric puzzles, a simple object that forces us to question our most fundamental assumptions about time and technology. While the London hammer presents a challenge to our timeline, another relic from the ancient world shatters our understanding of technological progress entirely. It was recovered not from solid rock but from the depths of the sea. In the year 1901, sponge divers exploring a Roman-era shipwreck near the Greek island of Antikythera stumbled upon a corroded lump of bronze and wood. At first glance, it seemed like an unremarkable piece of wreckage, but decades later, when researchers finally peered inside using advanced X-ray technology, they were met with a sight that defied belief. They found an intricate clockwork assembly of at least 30 precise bronze gears, interlocking with a complexity that would not be seen again for over 1,000 years. This was the Antikythera Mechanism, a device so advanced that it fundamentally rewrites the history of science. Built around 100 years before the Common Era, this analog computer could predict the movements of the sun, the moon, and the known planets with stunning accuracy. By turning a hand crank, an operator could calculate astronomical positions, forecast lunar and solar eclipses, and even track the cycle of the ancient Olympic Games. It was a portable cosmos, a miniature universe of mathematical precision housed in a wooden frame. The gears within it are a masterpiece of engineering, with teeth cut at precise angles to model the irregular orbits of celestial bodies, a problem so complex that it would challenge even modern engineers. How could such a device exist in a world we have always pictured as relying on simple mechanics and philosophical speculation? Its very existence implies a previously unknown lineage of Greek engineering, a school of mechanical genius that was lost to history, perhaps in the fires of war or the silent decay of libraries. The mechanism is not just an anomaly, it is a ghost. It is the sole surviving physical evidence of a level of technological sophistication that ancient texts only hint at. We have writings that mention intricate devices and automated wonders, but until this lump of bronze was pulled from the sea, we had no proof. Its discovery suggests that the journey of science and mechanics was not a straight upward line, but a path with dizzying peaks and devastating valleys. The knowledge required to build such a machine simply vanished for centuries. This single relic forces us to ask a haunting question. What other chapters of human invention have been completely erased from our collective memory, leaving behind only a solitary, rusted clue at the bottom of the ocean? While the Antikythera Mechanism reveals a lost peak of mechanical genius, a far simpler set of objects from ancient Iraq hints at a different kind of power, one that should not have existed for another 2,000 years. In the ruins of a Parthian village near Baghdad, a discovery was made in the 1930s that still sparks fierce debate. It was a small clay jar no larger than a man's hand, dating from the first few centuries of the Common Era. Inside, archaeologists found a rolled copper sheet forming a cylinder, and nestled within that, an iron rod. The jar showed signs of having once been sealed with an asphalt plug, which would have held the central rod perfectly in place, isolated from the copper walls. To the modern eye, the assembly is uncannily familiar. It looks for all the world like a primitive electric cell. The theory is as compelling as it is shocking. If the jar were filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or wine, the chemical reaction between the two different metals and the electrolyte would create a small but measurable electric current. Experiments with replicas have proven this works, generating around 1 volt of electricity, enough to produce a faint tingle or, more importantly, to electroplate a thin layer of metal onto another object. Was this the purpose of the so-called Baghdad Battery? Did artisans 2,000 years ago possess the knowledge to gild statues with a shimmering coat of gold through electroplating? The implications are profound, suggesting a flicker of electrical understanding in a world we thought was lit only by fire and candlelight. Yet the mystery is far from solved. Skeptics propose other, more mundane uses. The asphalt seal could have been a simple adhesive, and the iron and copper components might have been a storage case for sacred scrolls, with the metal merely acting as protective sheaths. No wires have ever been found, nor any other devices that would utilize such power. The debate continues, a quiet argument over a quiet object, whether it was a battery, a storage container, or something else entirely. This humble clay pot forces us to confront a tantalizing possibility. What if ancient knowledge was not just about levers and gears, but also about harnessing invisible forces, a secret spark of technology that was lost, forgotten, and buried in the dust for centuries? From the possibility of ancient electricity, we journey to the silent tombs of Egypt, where another small object holds a sky-high secret. Nestled within a burial site at Saqqara, a wooden artifact was discovered, carved with the graceful form of a bird. It dates back 2,000 years, a relic from a civilization known for its sacred symbols. At first glance, it seems unremarkable, just a beautifully crafted falcon, perhaps a child's toy or a ritual offering. But a closer look reveals features that are startlingly out of place. The wings are not just stylized, they are perfectly straight and rigid, with a cross-sectional shape that mirrors the airfoil of a modern aircraft wing. The tail is what truly sets it apart, standing completely vertical like the stabilizer on an airplane, unlike the horizontal or forked tails of any real bird. This is not just a carving, it is a design. When scaled up and built with modern materials, replicas of the Saqqara bird have been tested. With a small addition for balance, these models have proven to be remarkably aerodynamic, capable of gliding for considerable distances with graceful stability. The proportions seem engineered for flight, suggesting its creator understood principles of lift and control that would not be formally rediscovered for millennia. Could this be a scale model of a much larger glider, a blueprint for manned flight from the age of the pharaohs? The idea is intoxicating, pointing to a lost science of aviation in the ancient world. Mainstream Egyptology, however, offers a more earthbound interpretation. They point out that the artifact lacks any representation of a cockpit or landing gear, elements one would expect in a technical model. It was found with other ceremonial objects, leading many scholars to conclude it is simply a votive offering to the gods, perhaps a weather vane or indeed just a well-made toy. The vertical tail, they argue, could be a stylized representation of a bird's tail feathers seen from the side, yet the precision of its form continues to whisper of something more. If it was merely a toy, why does its design so perfectly align with the principles of aeronautics? If it was only a religious symbol, why does it look so ready to take to the air? The Saqqara bird does not present itself as a complex machine like the Antikythera Mechanism. Its mystery is one of elegant simplicity, a single piece of wood that silently challenges our entire narrative of human innovation and asks us who truly were the first masters of the sky. The silent, aerodynamic mystery of the Saqqara bird is one of elegant form, but our next relic offers a puzzle of blunt industrial anachronism. In February of 1961, 3 men were rock hunting near Olancha, California, searching for geodes, those rocky spheres that hide beautiful crystal interiors. They found one, a promising lump, and took it back to their workshop. But when one of them tried to cut it open with a diamond saw, the blade was nearly ruined. Inside the geode, they did not find sparkling crystals. They found a mechanical object. It appeared to be a piece of modern machinery, a ceramic cylinder with a metal core encased in a shell of hardened mineral. This was the Koso artifact. The men were convinced they had found something impossibly old, a man-made device sealed within a stone that, by all geological standards, should have taken hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of years to form. The mystery only deepened when the object was X-rayed. The images revealed a precise internal structure, a metal shaft surrounded by what looked like a ceramic insulator, and a hexagonal metal collar that seemed perfectly designed to be turned with a wrench. The resemblance to a contemporary spark plug was uncanny. Here was an object that looked like it belonged in a 20th century automobile engine, yet it was trapped inside what appeared to be a prehistoric stone. The implications were as explosive as the sparks it might have once produced, suggesting a technologically advanced civilization in the distant past, or perhaps even visitation from elsewhere. Yet, as with all great mysteries, a more earthly explanation eventually emerged. Skeptics and researchers took a closer look at the so-called geode. They argued it was not a true geode at all, but a concretion, a hard mineral nodule that can form relatively quickly around an existing object, especially in iron-rich environments. The object inside was identified with compelling evidence as a champion spark plug from the 1920s, a common model used in early automobiles and even Model T Fords. The theory is that this spark plug was lost or discarded in the desert, and over just a few decades, mineral-laden water cemented layers of clay and iron oxide around it, hardening into a rock-like shell that mimicked the appearance of a vastly older geode. This rapid concretion process, while fascinating, is a well-documented natural phenomenon, so the Koso artifact stands at a crossroads of interpretation. Is it a miraculous out-of-place relic that defies our history, or is it a perfect example of how nature can play a trick on our perception, creating a modern fossil in a geological blink of an eye? The answer you find may depend on whether you see a spark of ancient genius or simply a rusty old spark plug that got very, very lucky. Deep within a mountain cave on the border between China and Tibet, a story unfolds that pushes the boundaries of ancient mysteries into the realm of the truly extraterrestrial. In 1938, an archaeological expedition led by a professor named Kai Pu-te is said to have discovered a series of neat circular burial sites. Within them, they found the skeletal remains of a strangely proportioned people with large, fragile skulls and small, slender frames. But the real discovery was scattered throughout the cave, a collection of 716 stone discs, each roughly 9 inches in diameter. A groove spiraled from the center of each disc to its outer edge, and within that groove was a series of tiny, barely visible hieroglyphics. These were the Dropa stones. For 2 decades, the discs were reportedly stored away, their strange inscriptions a mystery. Then, in 1962, a Chinese scientist named Tsum Nui allegedly claimed to have deciphered the script. The story he told was astonishing. The hieroglyphics were not a human language, but the recorded history of an alien race called the Dropa. Their spacecraft had crash-landed in the Bayan Karaula Mountains 12,000 years ago. Unable to repair their ship, the survivors took refuge in the caves. The inscriptions supposedly detailed their plight, their struggle for survival, and their eventual tragic integration with the local human tribes, the very people whose unusual skeletons were found with the discs. The story captured the imagination of the world, presenting what seemed to be physical proof of ancient alien contact, a record of interstellar visitors etched in stone. Yet, when you search for physical evidence to support this incredible tale, it all but vanishes. The overwhelming consensus from the scientific community is that the Dropa stones are a complete fabrication, an elaborate hoax that began in the 1960s. No credible archaeological records from the 1930s expedition have ever been produced. The Professor Kai Pu-te is a figure who cannot be independently verified. The scientist who performed the translation, Tsum Nui, has a name that does not follow standard Chinese naming conventions, raising immediate red flags. Furthermore, not a single one of the 716 discs has ever been made available for modern scientific analysis. They have never been displayed in a museum, studied in a published, peer-reviewed paper, or subjected to tests that could confirm their age or the nature of their inscriptions. The entire narrative rests on a series of sensational magazine articles and books, a story that spread without the burden of proof. So how did such a compelling myth take root? It likely grew from a kernel of a real, but much more mundane, object. Discs, which are circular jade artifacts with a central hole, are well known in Chinese archaeology, often found in ancient tombs. Some theories suggest that a storyteller may have seen such a disc, noted its spiral groove, and spun an interstellar yarn around it, inventing the tiny hieroglyphics and the crashed spaceship to create a modern legend. The Dropa stones stand as a powerful cautionary tale in the study of prehistoric puzzles. They represent the immense human desire to find answers, even if we have to invent them. They remind us that the line between a genuine historical mystery and an outright fabrication can be dangerously thin, blurred by our own longing for a past that is more wondrous and more populated than we ever dreamed. From the cosmic legend of the Dropa stones, we travel to a small private museum in Peru, home to a collection of artifacts that present a direct visual challenge to history itself. These are the Ica stones, thousands of andesite rocks, each carved with intricate scenes that defy logical explanation. The images etched into their dark, polished surfaces are breathtaking and bizarre. They show human figures living alongside creatures we would instantly recognize as dinosaurs, some riding on the backs of triceratops-like beasts as if they were tame livestock. Other stones depict advanced medical knowledge, with detailed illustrations of what appear to be cesarean sections, heart transplants, and blood transfusions. There are even carvings of humans using telescopes to observe comets and celestial bodies, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of astronomy. When a local physician, Dr. Javier Cabrera, began collecting them in the 1960s, he built an entire theory around them. He believed the stones were a lost library from a prehistoric civilization, a visual record of a time when mankind achieved a technological peak and coexisted with long-extinct creatures. The implications were staggering, suggesting that our entire timeline of life on Earth was profoundly wrong. The mystery, however, was not destined to last. The source of the stones was traced back to a single farmer who eventually confessed to the whole affair. He admitted that he and his family had carved the stones themselves, using simple tools and then aging them by baking them in cow dung to give them a patina of antiquity. He explained that he created the designs by copying images from comic books, newspapers, and textbooks. With this confession, the case seemed closed, a straightforward and elaborate hoax designed to profit from a credulous academic. Yet, a single confession cannot entirely erase the haunting questions that linger. The sheer volume of the stones is the first puzzle. There are said to be over 15,000 of them. Could one farming family really have produced such an immense collection, each stone bearing unique and often complex artwork, without leaving a clearer trail of their production? Some researchers also point to the depth and weathering of the engravings, arguing that on a number of the stones, the carved lines appear as worn as the stone's surface, suggesting they could be centuries old, not mere decades. This creates a frustrating dilemma. We have a clear confession of a hoax, yet we also have a collection so vast and varied that it seems to strain the limits of that very confession. Were all 15,000 stones fakes, or did the farmer use a few genuine, ancient carved stones as inspiration before his enterprise grew into a massive forgery operation? The Ica stones force us to confront a difficult truth in the world of archaeological anomalies. Sometimes the easiest answer is a confession of fraud, but the evidence itself continues to whisper, leaving us to wonder if we have dismissed the entire story too quickly. Is it possible that within this acknowledged hoax there lies a hidden core of genuine, inexplicable history? The line between a deliberate hoax and a genuine enigma becomes razor-sharp with our next relic, a map that seems to chart the impossible. In the Topkapi Palace Museum in Istanbul rests a fragment of a world map drawn on gazelle skin by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis in 1513. The map itself is a beautiful artifact of the age of exploration, but one particular detail has ignited a firestorm of controversy for decades. Along the bottom of the fragment, below the Atlantic Ocean and the familiar coast of South America, lies a landmass with a curiously accurate and detailed coastline. To many, this land is unmistakably Antarctica. The problem is not just that the continent was not officially discovered until 3 centuries later in 1820. The real problem is what the map shows. This coastline of Antarctica is depicted free of its immense ice cap, a feature that has buried the continent for millions of years. How could a 16th century admiral have known the true shape of a land hidden under miles of solid ice? The most tantalizing theory suggests that Piri Reis was working from much older source maps, charts drawn by a sophisticated seafaring civilization that explored the world in a remote prehistoric era, a time when Antarctica's coasts were indeed temperate and ice-free. This lost civilization, possessing advanced cartographic knowledge, would have had to exist over 10,000 years ago before the ice sheets claimed the continent for good. The map, then, would be a copy of a copy, a surviving echo from a world we have completely forgotten. This idea of a pre-glacial source map is breathtaking, but the scientific counter-arguments offer a more grounded, though no less fascinating, explanation. Skeptics point out that Piri Reis himself wrote notes on the map, explaining that he compiled it from 20 different source charts, including maps from Columbus and ancient Greek and Portuguese sources. The mysterious southern land, they argue, is not Antarctica at all, but a speculative and distorted extension of the eastern coast of South America. Cartographers of that era often filled blank spaces on their maps with hypothetical lands, piecing together sailors' tales and educated guesses. When you look at the map with this in mind, the shape can be interpreted as a badly mangled version of the Patagonian coastline, with a distinct bay on the Piri Reis map corresponding to the Gulf of San Matias in Argentina. The accuracy in this view is not a miracle of ancient knowledge, but a lucky cartographic coincidence, a case of our modern eyes seeing a familiar shape where the original cartographer saw only conjecture. So we are left with a choice between two profound possibilities. Do we see in these faded lines on gazelle skin the ghost of a lost civilization, a people so advanced they mapped the world before history began? Or do we see the brilliant yet imperfect work of a 16th century scholar, piecing together the known world with the limited tools of his time, accidentally creating a mystery for future generations? The Piri Reis map does not offer an easy answer. It simply sits in its museum case, a silent testament to the enduring power of the unknown, challenging us to decide where the line falls between a forgotten truth and an extraordinary mistake. The Piri Reis map invites us to look for lost worlds across the seas, but a discovery in the heart of North America suggests a different kind of voyage entirely. In 1898, a Swedish immigrant farmer named Olof Oman was clearing trees on his land near Kensington, Minnesota, when he unearthed a large stone slab tangled in the roots of a poplar tree. Carved into its face was a message in runes, the ancient Germanic alphabet used by the Vikings. The inscription told a harrowing tale of Norse explorers from a party of 30 men, a group of 10 having been killed, it claimed, far west of their ships. Most stunning of all was the date it recorded, the year 1362, over 130 years after the last known Viking voyages to North America. This was the Kensington runestone, and if genuine, it would rewrite the history of the continent, placing Scandinavian explorers deep in the American Midwest centuries before Columbus set sail. The story it told was one of tragedy and endurance, a desperate record carved in stone by survivors of a doomed expedition into an unknown land. The immediate academic reaction was swift and brutal. Scholars dismissed it as an obvious hoax, pointing to linguistic errors they argued a medieval Norseman would never have made. They noted the runic form seemed inconsistent, the language suspiciously modern, and the grammar unlike that found on uncontested runestones from Scandinavia. The most damning evidence for many was the context. Why would a Norse expedition travel so far inland, and how could such a journey leave no other trace in the archaeological record? The stone became a textbook example of a 19th century forgery, likely created by Olof Oman himself, a man who would have had access to runic alphabets published in immigrant newspapers of the time. Yet the stone refused to be so easily dismissed. A century of passionate debate has chipped away at the skeptic's certainty. Later linguistic analyzers have argued that the runes and language are not pure mistakes, but could represent a specific, rare dialect of 14th century Swedish, one a modern forger would be unlikely to know. Geologists have examined the weathering of the inscription, with some concluding that the carved grooves are centuries old, their wear matching the stone's surface in a way that is difficult to fake. The tree itself presented another puzzle. The poplar that held the stone was estimated to be at least 40 years old, meaning the stone had to have been placed there long before Oman bought the farm, complicating the timeline of any hoax. So we are left with a deep and enduring conflict. On one side, the weight of mainstream scholarship and the many logical inconsistencies. On the other, a handful of compelling physical and linguistic details that do not fit neatly into the hoax narrative. The Kensington runestone transcends its own mystery to become a cultural icon, a symbol of Scandinavian heritage and pioneer identity in the American Midwest. It represents a powerful human story, whether it is a genuine cry from the past or a brilliant fabrication. It forces us to ask not only who carved the stone, but why its story continues to resonate so deeply. Is it a lonely relic of true explorers or a different kind of artifact altogether? A testament to the profound need for a new homeland to have its own ancient, epic history. A single silver coin, smaller than a thumbnail, can carry the weight of an entire continent's history. Discovered during an archaeological dig at a Native American settlement in Maine, this small artifact ignited one of the most cautious yet compelling debates in North American archaeology. Known as the Maine penny, it was unearthed in 1957 among the shell heaps and fire-cracked rocks of a site dated to between 1230 and 1400 AD. The coin was immediately identified as a Norse silver penny, minted in Norway during the reign of King Olaf Kyrre between 1067 and 1093 AD. Its authenticity as a genuine medieval coin is not in question. The mystery lies in how it traveled over 3,000 miles from a Scandinavian mint to a pre-Columbian settlement on the coast of Maine. The implications are staggering. If it was lost by a Norse explorer himself, it is tangible proof of direct contact between Vikings and native peoples far south of their known settlement in Newfoundland. It would suggest Norse voyages ventured deeper into the Americas than our history books dare to claim, potentially mapping a coastline they never settled but certainly explored. This one coin could be the key that unlocks a broader, more interconnected Atlantic world centuries before Columbus. Yet a more conservative and perhaps more likely explanation tempers this thrilling possibility. Archaeologists note that the coin was found alone. No other Norse artifacts, no ship nails, no tools, no definitive evidence of a European presence was discovered at the site. This isolation suggests a different journey, one not across the open ocean, but up and down the coast through ancient, well-established native trade networks. The indigenous peoples of the Northeast were master traders, their routes stretching for thousands of miles, moving copper from Lake Superior, shells from the Atlantic, and obsidian from the far west. It is entirely plausible that this Norse penny, perhaps left behind at the Elance-Aux Meadows settlement in Newfoundland, was picked up by native traders. Over generations, it could have been passed from hand to hand, village to village, traveling south as a curious trinket or a valuable piece of exotic material, eventually finding its way to Maine. It would have been valuable not as currency but as a source of pure, malleable silver, so we are left with two narratives, each profound in its own way. One is a saga of bold exploration and first contact, a story where a Viking accidentally drops a coin that becomes a solitary clue to his journey. The other is a quieter, but no less remarkable, story of a vast and sophisticated continental trade system, a network so extensive that a coin from a tiny, fledgling European settlement in the far north could circulate for hundreds of years until it came to rest in a shell heap on a distant shore. The Maine penny does not offer a simple answer. Instead, it presents us with a choice between two different visions of the ancient Americas, both of them challenging what we thought we knew. Buried deep within the sands of time, a metal object offers a paradox as stark as any we have seen. In 1974, construction workers digging a trench along the banks of the Meuse River in Aiud, Romania, unearthed something truly strange. Buried under 35 feet of sand and gravel, they found three objects. Two were fossilized mastodon bones, relics from a bygone age when giant creatures roamed the earth. But the third object was not a bone at all. It was a wedge-shaped piece of metal, heavily weathered and covered in a thick, black patina. Initial analysis determined it was composed of an alloy dominated by aluminum, a metal that requires a complex industrial process to create. The context of the find was the real shock. The layer of earth where it was discovered, alongside those ancient bones, suggested it could be tens of thousands of years old, a time when humanity was supposed to be mastering stone tools, not advanced metallurgy. How could a refined aluminum alloy exist in a prehistoric world? Aluminum is not found pure in nature. It is locked tightly inside an ore called bauxite, and freeing it requires a tremendous amount of electrical energy in a process called electrolysis, a technology that simply did not exist before the 19th century. The unearthed wedge, therefore, presents a seemingly impossible scenario, a piece of sophisticated industry lying next to the remains of an Ice Age beast. The most tantalizing theory is that it is a genuine out-of-place artifact, a fragment from a technologically advanced, unknown civilization lost to prehistory. Perhaps it was part of a tool or a vehicle from a culture whose entire legacy has crumbled to dust, leaving only this one cryptic clue. Its wedge-like shape has even led to speculation it could be a piece of a landing gear from some ancient, perhaps even extraterrestrial craft. Skeptics, however, point to a much more plausible explanation. The wedge bears a striking resemblance to a tooth from a modern excavator bucket, the kind of heavy machinery used in digging and construction. These teeth are often made from hardened steel alloys, but some can contain aluminum components. The theory is that this piece of machinery simply broke off during earlier excavation work in the area, perhaps in the 19th or early 20th century, and over time it settled deep into the riverbank sediments. The mastodon bones, already fossilized, could have been redeposited in the same general area by natural forces, creating a false association that made the metal wedge appear far older than it really was. The heavy weathering and patina could have formed in just a few decades in the chemically active environment of the riverbed. So the unearthed wedge stands at a crossroads, a heavy, enigmatic object that forces us to weigh two very different stories. Is it a miraculous relic pointing to a forgotten chapter of human achievement, or is it merely a piece of modern industrial debris that nature conspired to bury in a misleading context? The answer may never be fully settled, leaving this metallic wedge to silently challenge our assumptions about the timeline of technology. The unearthed wedge presents a metallic puzzle, but nature itself can forge objects of startling symmetry. Deep within an Austrian coal mine in 1885, a block of coal was split open to reveal a strange object trapped inside. It was a solid, cube-like piece of iron, its color a dark metallic gray. This was the wolf's egg iron, an artifact that would soon capture the imagination of researchers and earn the nickname the Salzburg Cube. The coal seam from which it came was dated to the Tertiary period, a geological epoch that spanned from about 66 million to 2.6 million years ago, a time long before modern humans walked the earth. The object's most compelling feature was its shape. It appeared remarkably geometric, with a distinct groove running around its center, as if it had been cast or worked by intelligent hands. The immediate, thrilling conclusion was that this was a manufactured item, a tool or component from an impossibly ancient civilization, sealed by time inside a prehistoric coal bed. The implications were as profound as they were disorienting. How could a worked piece of iron exist millions of years before the dawn of humanity? The mystery seemed to point to a lost world of industry in an age of primordial forests. Modern scientific analysis, however, eventually provided a more grounded, though no less fascinating, explanation. Detailed examination revealed the cube was not a manufactured metal object at all. Its composition was identified as a form of iron oxide, most likely the mineral goethite, a common compound that frequently forms in sedimentary deposits. Geologists explain that such concretions can develop with surprisingly regular shapes as minerals precipitate from water and crystallize around a central nucleus within the soft sediments of a swamp or bog. The prominent groove around its center was not a tool mark but a natural seam, a line of weakness where the concretion was most likely to split. It was a product of the same ancient environment that formed the coal itself, a geological oddity shaped by the slow, patient chemistry of the earth. Yet, even with this rational explanation, the wolf's egg iron retains its power to intrigue. It stands as a perfect example of how our minds are wired to see intention and design, especially in objects that mimic the products of human hands. Its story is a cautionary tale about the allure of the anomalous, reminding us that nature is the most prolific and ingenious forger of all, capable of creating its own perfect and perfectly misleading relics. Deep beneath the Idaho soil, a drill bit struck more than just water. In 1889, workers in the town of Nampa were boring an artesian well, their equipment chewing through over 300 feet of sediment when the pump suddenly brought up an unexpected object. It was a small, carefully fashioned clay figurine, barely 2 inches long, depicting a stylized human form. The detail was unmistakable, with a head, limbs, and a torso shaped by intelligent fingers. The problem was its reported depth. The figurine was said to have been extracted from a layer of gravel and clay that geologists identified as belonging to the Pleistocene epoch, a stratum untouched by human hands for at least 2 million years. This was a time when the only inhabitants of North America were prehistoric mammals like mammoths and saber-toothed cats. How could a delicate, fired clay sculpture emerge from a world before modern humans even existed? The Nampa figurine presented a paradox that seemed to append the entire human timeline in the Americas. If it was authentic to that deep layer, it was not just an artifact, it was a revolution, suggesting the presence of artistic tool using humans on the continent millions of years earlier than any accepted model would allow. The implications were so profound they divided the scientific community of the day. Some respected geologists examined the site and the undisturbed strata above the gravel layer and concluded it was impossible for the object to have fallen from the surface. The sediment showed no signs of a borehole or disturbance that would have allowed the figurine to sink from a higher, more recent level. It appeared to be genuinely in place, a solitary artist's creation from an impossibly ancient world. Yet the counter-argument is persistent and practical. Skeptics point out that the well was drilled using a commonly employed method called casing, where a pipe is driven into the ground to prevent the hole from collapsing. It is entirely possible, they argue, that the small, lightweight figurine was already lodged in the soil or debris closer to the surface. During the violent, percussive process of drilling, it could have been dislodged and then washed down by the circulating water, settling at the bottom of the borehole and giving the false impression it came from that deep, ancient layer. The figurine itself, while clearly man-made, is difficult to date directly, as the firing of clay does not allow for reliable radiometric testing. So we are left with a classic conflict between an extraordinary claim and a mundane, but entirely plausible, explanation. Is the Nampa figurine a ghost from a forgotten chapter of human history, a fragile piece of evidence that we have vastly underestimated the age of our own species in the New World? Or is it a fascinating archaeological red herring, a much more recent artifact that nature and machinery conspired to place in a deeply misleading context? Its tiny, silent form holds a monumental question, challenging us to decide whether we have uncovered a profound truth or simply a trick of the earth. While the Nampa figurine presents a human-shaped mystery, another relic from the depths of time offers a puzzle of perfect geometry. In the mineral-rich deposits of South Africa, miners have unearthed small, spherical objects that defy simple explanation. Known as the Klerksdorp spheres, these artifacts are found embedded within pyrophyllite, a mineral dated to an astonishing 3.2 billion years old. That is a time before multicellular life existed on Earth, a world dominated by single-celled organisms in primordial seas. The spheres themselves are often no larger than a walnut, with some flattened into disc-like shapes. Their most striking feature is a set of thin, precise grooves that run perfectly around their equators, lines so straight and symmetrical they look as if they were machined by a lathe. To the human eye, they appear undeniably manufactured, like tiny ball bearings or components from some unimaginably ancient piece of machinery. The grooves are not random scratches, but consistent parallel lines that seem to suggest design and intent from a time when no such thing should have been possible. How could such precision exist in a world without life, let alone technology? Proponents of their artificial nature argue that these spheres are physical evidence of a non-human intelligence, perhaps an advanced civilization that rose and fell in Earth's distant past, or even artifacts left by extraterrestrial visitors. The very perfection of their form, they insist, is a signature of manufacture, not the chaotic processes of nature. Geologists, however, offer a different and equally fascinating story. They explain that the Klerksdorp spheres are almost certainly natural formations known as concretions. In this case, the spheres began as microscopic crystals of the mineral pyrite, also known as fool's gold. Under immense pressure and over millions of years, these pyrite crystals can grow in a radiating pattern from a central point within the soft, surrounding sediment. As they grow, they can form nearly perfect spheres. The mysterious grooves, they are likely the result of a process called pressure solution. Under the colossal weight of overlying rock, the crystalline structure of the sphere becomes selectively dissolved along its weakest planes, creating those sharp, linear indentations that look so much like tool marks. It is a perfect example of nature's own brand of engineering, using nothing but time, pressure, and chemistry to create an object that appears impossibly designed. So we are faced with a choice between two profound narratives. One sees in these small, grooved spheres a ghost from a past so remote it challenges our very understanding of time and life. The other sees a beautiful demonstration of planetary geology, a reminder that the natural world is capable of its own exquisite and deceptive artistry. The Klerksdorp spheres do not reveal their secret easily. They simply exist silent and enigmatic, forcing us to question whether we are seeing the handiwork of a lost intelligence or simply the patient, sculpting hand of the Earth itself. From the microscopic precision of the Klerksdorp spheres, we journey to a landscape of monumental and breathtaking geometry. Deep in the jungles of Costa Rica's Diquis Delta, hundreds of stone spheres lie scattered, some half buried in the earth, others standing in silent, perfect clusters. Carved from a hard, igneous rock called granodiorite, these orbs range from the size of a melon to colossal giants over 8 feet in diameter, weighing an astonishing 15 tons or more. They are the work of the pre-Columbian Diquis culture, a people who flourished from around 800 to 1500 AD. The sheer effort involved in their creation is almost beyond comprehension. Using only stone hammers and other primitive tools, these ancient artisans painstakingly pecked and ground the raw boulders into near-perfect spheres, a process that would have required generations of patient, back-breaking labor for the largest examples. The precision achieved is what truly staggers the mind. Many of the spheres are accurate to within a few millimeters of a perfect round, a level of craftsmanship that seems to defy their simple technology. Why would a society dedicate such immense resources to sculpting stone into perfect forms? The spheres offer no written records, only silent, imposing clues. One prominent theory suggests they served as celestial markers, arranged in specific patterns to track the movements of the sun, moon, and stars, turning the landscape into a vast astronomical observatory. Another idea posits they were symbols of power and social status, with the largest and most perfect spheres belonging to the most important chiefs or families, their size and placement declaring their authority across the territory. They might also have functioned as territorial boundaries, their imposing presence demarcating sacred ground or the lands of different communities. Some of the largest spheres have been found at the entrances to important sites, standing as eternal sentinels. Yet the full truth remains locked within the stone. The Spanish conquest and subsequent agricultural development displaced many of the spheres from their original arrangements, robbing us of the crucial context that might have decoded their purpose. We are left with a landscape of sublime mystery, a testament to a culture that expressed its deepest beliefs not in words but in perfect monumental shapes of stone. These spheres are not merely artifacts, they are a profound statement, a question carved in rock that asks us what drove a people to transform their entire world with such beautiful, enigmatic precision. While the stone spheres of Costa Rica present a mystery of monumental form, another relic conceals its secrets in the delicate, maddening script of a book no one can read. Tucked away in the Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University, the Voynich manuscript is arguably the most stubbornly enigmatic book in the world. Its pages, made of vellum carbon dated to the early 15th century, are filled from edge to edge with a flowing, unknown script. Not a single word of this text has ever been conclusively deciphered, despite over a century of effort by the world's top cryptographers and linguists. The writing flows in a seemingly consistent and structured manner, with patterns that suggest a real language or a complex cipher, yet it defies every known method of code breaking. This text is only half the mystery, for the manuscript is lavishly illustrated with pictures that are just as baffling as the words. There are page after page of botanical drawings featuring plants that do not exist on Earth, their roots and leaves arranged in impossible configurations. There are astrological diagrams showing unfamiliar constellations and celestial mechanisms, with nude women, often called the nymphs, bathing in intricate networks of green pools and tubes that resemble some kind of biological or alchemical system. Other sections depict complex cosmological charts and what appear to be pharmaceutical recipes. The overall impression is of a scientific or medical text from a parallel universe, a systematic encyclopedia of a world we cannot recognize. The theories attempting to explain it are as varied as they are desperate. Some believe it is an encoded herbal text, its strange script created to protect valuable medicinal knowledge from rivals. Others propose it represents a lost language, perhaps from a pre-Columbian culture, though how it ended up in early Renaissance Europe is another puzzle. There are those who argue it is the work of a skilled but mentally unstable author, a stream of unconscious nonsense given the illusion of meaning. And then there is the persistent theory that the entire thing is an elaborate and brilliant hoax, perhaps crafted by a clever forger like Edward Kelly to sell a mysterious book to a wealthy patron like Rudolph II. This hoax theory gained traction with the suggestion that the text could be gibberish, generated by a complex but meaningless algorithm designed to mimic the patterns of language without conveying any information. Yet, even this explanation feels incomplete. Recent computational analyses have shown that the manuscript's text possesses statistical properties remarkably similar to those of natural languages, with word entropy and pattern structures that are incredibly difficult to fake. This suggests there is a genuine, underlying system at work, a method to the madness that continues to tease us from across the centuries. The Voynich manuscript is a siren's call to the curious, a beautiful, frustrating, and utterly silent vault of knowledge. It represents the ultimate locked room mystery, a book that holds its secret so tightly that it makes us wonder if we are looking at a work of genius, an act of madness, or the most perfect and enduring prank ever played on the human intellect. The silent, indecipherable text of the Voynich manuscript offers no answers, but a carving on an ancient Egyptian temple wall presents an image that seems instantly, shockingly familiar. Deep within the crypt of the Hathor Temple at Dendera is a series of bas-reliefs that have become the centerpiece of a modern mystery. The carving shows a large, elongated object, bulbous at one end and tapered at the other, within which a snake extends its full length. This object is held aloft by a priest, and a cable, depicted as a braided rope, runs from its base to a box upon which a god is seated. To a modern viewer, the resemblance is uncanny. It looks exactly like a giant, filament-less light bulb powered by an external energy source. The theory is as dramatic as it is simple. proposing that the ancient Egyptians possessed, or at least understood, the principles of electric lighting, illuminating their deepest tombs and temples with a technology we thought was millennia away. The visual argument is powerfully compelling, a classic case of our brains seeing what we know. We live in a world of light bulbs, so when we see a carving of a bulb-shaped object connected by a cord to a box, we cannot help but make the connection. The persistence of this idea speaks to our desire to find our own technology reflected in the ancient world, a confirmation that our modern genius has ancient roots. Egyptologists, however, offer a very different and deeply symbolic interpretation. They identify the scene not as a technical diagram, but as a profound creation myth. The object is not a light bulb, but a lotus flower, a sacred symbol of rebirth and creation in Egyptian mythology. The snake emerging from it is not a filament, but a serpent deity, representing the primeval god Harsantus, or more broadly, the act of divine creation itself. In this reading, the entire scene depicts the moment of cosmic genesis, with the lotus flower giving birth to the serpent, a symbol of life and power springing from the primordial waters. The so-called cable is interpreted as a stylized lotus stem connecting the flower to its roots, and the box is not a power source but a jed pillar, a symbol of stability and the god Osiris. The priest is not an electrician but a spiritual intermediary presenting this symbol of creation to the gods, so we are faced with two radically different visions. One sees a literal technological marvel, a blueprint for ancient electric light. The other sees a beautiful, complex allegory for the birth of the universe. The truth likely lies not in a choice between these two, but in an understanding of how our modern perspective can so dramatically reshape an ancient story. The Dendera relief does not show us a forgotten power grid, but it does illuminate something else entirely: the immense and enduring power of human symbolism and our own tendency to see the ghosts of our world in the sacred art of the past. High on the arid plains of Peru, a desert canvas stretches for miles, bearing artwork so immense they defy comprehension from the ground. These are the Nazca lines, a sprawling gallery of geoglyphs etched into the dark, stony surface of the Pampas de Jumana. Created by the Nazca culture between 500 BC and 500 AD, the lines form hundreds of distinct figures. Some are crisp geometric shapes, vast trapezoids and spirals that stretch toward the horizon. Others are breathtakingly intricate depictions of a hummingbird, a spider, a monkey with a coiled tail, and a colossal condor with wings spread wide. Each design is a single, continuous line, a furrow scraped through the dark desert varnish to reveal the lighter earth beneath. The scale is almost impossible to grasp unless you are viewing them from the sky, a perspective the Nazca people themselves could never have physically achieved. This simple fact is the core of the mystery. Why would a civilization invest such immense, communal effort into creating art they could never see? The methods of their construction, however, were well within their capabilities. Archaeologists have demonstrated that the Nazca could have used simple surveying techniques, driving stakes and using ropes to map out these colossal designs from smaller-scale models. Teams of workers would then have meticulously removed the dark iron oxide-coated pebbles to expose the lighter, sandy soil below. The stable, windless climate of the desert has preserved these precise lines for over a millennium. But the why continues to echo across the empty plain. One leading theory suggests the lines formed a vast astronomical calendar, with certain shapes aligning with the sun, moon, and stars during key seasonal events, turning the entire desert into a sacred observatory for tracking time and planning agriculture. Another compelling idea posits they were ritual pathways, walked by priests during religious ceremonies to invoke the deities represented by the animal figures, perhaps to bring rain from the distant mountains. The most famous and sensational theory, however, points to the sky in a different way. From the cockpit of a modern aircraft, the long, straight runways and intricate animal forms look uncannily like signals or landing guides. This has fueled the enduring idea that the Nazca lines were messages for, or even landing strips used by extraterrestrial beings. Proponents argue that only from the air do the designs make sense, suggesting the Nazca had help from above. Yet, this alien hypothesis overlooks the profound spiritual connection the Nazca people had with their landscape. Their worldview was deeply intertwined with the mountains, the sky, and the scarce, precious water. The lines may have been a way to communicate not with aliens, but with their own gods, a form of prayer so large and permanent that the deities in the heavens could not possibly miss it. The true purpose was likely a complex fusion of astronomy, religion, and social identity, a way for a people to inscribe their beliefs onto the very face of the earth. The Nazca lines do not ask us to look for ancient astronauts. They ask us to understand a civilization that saw the desert not as an empty wasteland, but as a living temple, a vast slate upon which they could draw their hopes, their fears, and their connection to the cosmos. The sheer scale of human endeavor on the Nazca Plains is humbling, but it is in the high Andes that we encounter stonework that seems to defy not just perspective, but the very laws of physics. Just outside the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, the fortress of Sacsayhuaman rises from the earth, a sprawling complex of ramps and terraces crowned by walls that are a marvel of megalithic engineering. These are not simple stacked blocks. The most famous sections are composed of colossal limestone boulders, some weighing over 100 tons, each one a unique, irregular polygon. They fit together with a jigsaw puzzle precision so tight that you cannot slip a piece of paper or even a razor blade between them. This perfect, mortarless joinery has withstood centuries of earthquakes that would reduce modern masonry to rubble, the stones simply shifting and settling back into place, locked by their own perfect geometry. The visual effect is both awe-inspiring and deeply disorienting, as if the walls were molded from a soft, clay-like material that then hardened in place. How did the Inca, with their Bronze Age technology, achieve such an impossible fit? The conventional explanation credits the Inca stonemasons with almost superhuman patience and skill. They likely used a method called trial and error, where a block was painstakingly shaped and then lowered into place, with high spots marked and pecked away using harder stone hammers. This process would be repeated again and again over generations until the fit was flawless. The quarrying of these giants is another mystery. They were cut from a site miles away, and the leading theory suggests they were dragged on log rollers by thousands of workers, leveraging sheer human power to move mountains one stone at a time. Yet, even this monumental effort does not fully explain the surreal perfection of the joins, especially on the most complex, multi-angled stones. This gap in understanding has given rise to more speculative legends. Incan oral tradition itself speaks of a knowledge lost to time, a substance derived from plants that could soften stone, allowing workers to mold it like putty before it returned to its original hardness. Other tales recorded by the Spanish conquistadors tell of a race of giants who built the walls, their immense strength making light work of the colossal boulders. These stories, while fantastical, speak to a genuine human bafflement. The walls of Sacsayhuaman stand as a silent, physical question. Are we looking at the absolute peak of pre-industrial human craftsmanship, a testament to what can be achieved with limitless labor and generational dedication? Or do these impossible seams hint at a forgotten technique, a lost technology that allowed the Inca to work with stone in a way we can no longer comprehend? The stones offer no answer, only their immense, interlocked silence. Their silent, stone gaze holds a mystery as vast as the Pacific Ocean that surrounds them. On the most isolated inhabited island on Earth, nearly 900 massive stone figures stand or lie fallen across the landscape. These are the moai of Easter Island, monolithic human figures carved from compressed volcanic ash by the Rapa Nui people. The sheer scale of their creation is staggering. The average moai stands over 13 feet tall and weighs a staggering 14 tons, while the largest ever erected, named Paro, towered at 33 feet and weighed an incredible 82 tons. These were not small idols, they were giants quarried from the rock of a single volcano, Rano Raraku. The mountain itself still holds dozens of incomplete figures, frozen in the act of being born from the stone, giving us a haunting snapshot of the carving process. But the greater enigma is not how they were carved, but how they were moved. How did a people with no wheels, no metal tools, and no large animals transport these colossal statues miles across rugged terrain to ceremonial platforms along the coast? The traditional theory suggests a slow, arduous process of rocking the moai back and forth, inching them along a lubricated path of logs, a method that would have consumed immense amounts of timber and human labor. More recent experiments, however, have shown a startlingly simple alternative. By using 3 ropes and teams of people to rock and twist the statue, it is possible to walk the moai upright in a controlled wobble across the landscape, a method that would have been far less destructive to the island's fragile ecosystem. Yet the purpose of this monumental effort was deeply spiritual. The moai were not gods but representations of revered ancestors. Their backs were to the sea, their imposing faces gazing inward over the clan territories, serving as powerful stone intermediaries between the living community and the spirit world. They were believed to hold supernatural power or mana, projecting protection and fertility over the people. This explains the final, crucial act of their creation, the placing of large, white coral eyes with red scoria pupils into the empty sockets, and ceremony that was believed to bring the statue to life. But this story of incredible human achievement is shadowed by a profound tragedy. The very act of creating and transporting the moai is central to the island's ecological collapse. To move the giants, vast forests of palm trees were likely felled for rollers and ropes. As the trees vanished, the soil eroded, bird populations crashed, and the ability to build seafaring canoes for fishing disappeared. The society that had poured its energy and resources into these magnificent stone ancestors found itself starving, fractured, and at war. In the chaos, the statues were systematically toppled, their eyes smashed out, breaking their spiritual power. The fallen moai, lying face down in the grass, are more than just ruins. They are a powerful, silent cautionary tale. They speak of a civilization that achieved breathtaking artistic and engineering heights, only to undermine its own survival by consuming the very resources it depended upon. The moai ask us a difficult and enduring question, a question that resonates far beyond their remote island home. What happens when a culture's grandest ambitions outstrip the fragile environment that sustains it? A civilization's collapse, as witnessed on Easter Island, marks a poignant end to a story we thought we understood. But what if the very beginning of that story is also wrong? In the dusty foothills of southeastern Turkey, a discovery on a hill known as Göbekli Tepe has done exactly that, shattering the foundational narrative of human history. For generations, we were taught a simple progression. First, humans learned to farm, creating a stable, surplus food supply. This agricultural revolution then allowed people to settle down in villages, which grew into towns, and eventually, this new social complexity gave them the free time and organization to build monumental structures for their gods. It was a tidy, logical sequence. Göbekli Tepe stands this entire idea on its head. This sprawling complex of at least 20 circular enclosures was not built by settled farmers, but by nomadic hunter-gatherers. And it is not just a simple shrine. It is a breathtaking architectural achievement dating back an almost incomprehensible 12,000 years, a staggering 6,000 years older than Stonehenge and 7,000 years before the Great Pyramids of Giza. These people should have been, by our old definition, primitive, yet they carved, moved, and erected massive limestone pillars, the largest weighing over 16 tons. They are T-shaped, with some standing 16 feet high, and they are arranged in precise circles. many of these pillars are not blank. They are masterfully carved with a menagerie of ancient beasts, a gallery of predators and prey from a lost world. Foxes, cranes, scorpions, and snarling lions are etched into the solid rock with a fluid, confident artistry. These are not crude scratches. They are dynamic, sophisticated reliefs, a Stone Age Bible depicting the animals that shared their world. The central pillars in each enclosure are even larger, and they are often carved with arms and hands, suggesting they are stylized human figures, perhaps ancestral beings or powerful deities watching over the rituals performed within. The sheer effort involved is almost unimaginable. Without draft animals, without metal tools, these hunter-gatherers quarried these colossal stones from local bedrock, shaped them with flint tools, and then transported them, likely using log rollers and immense human power, for hundreds of yards to the hilltop. They then erected them into perfect circles, a feat of engineering that would have required a large, coordinated labor force working together for months, if not years, on a single enclosure. This is the core of the mystery that rewrites our history. According to the old model, these people should have been constantly on the move, chasing game and foraging for nuts and berries, with no time for such grandiose projects. They had not yet domesticated wheat or built permanent villages, so what possessed them? What powerful, unifying force could compel scattered bands of hunters to come together and dedicate generations to building a temple complex? The evidence suggests that at Göbekli Tepe the gods came first. It was not agriculture that created religion and complex society, but perhaps the other way around. The need to build and maintain this sacred place, to gather for seasonal rituals, may have been the catalyst that forced people to settle down. To feed the hundreds of workers and pilgrims, they might have started cultivating wild grasses on the surrounding hills, slowly stumbling into the invention of farming. The temple may have built the farm, not the farm the temple. Then, around 8000 BC, this vibrant, revolutionary center was deliberately and carefully buried. Every enclosure was filled with an immense amount of soil, stone, and animal bones, a conscious interment that preserved the site perfectly for millennia until its rediscovery. Why was it a sacred retirement, a way to honor the old gods before moving on to a new way of life? The silence from Göbekli Tepe is as profound as its message. It forces us to admit that the human drive to create, to believe, and to build something larger than ourselves is far older and far more powerful than we ever dreamed. Beneath the rolling fields and quiet forests of modern Europe lies a hidden world, a labyrinth of tunnels so vast it defies belief. Stretching from the northern shores of Scotland all the way to Turkey, this underground network consists of thousands of subterranean passages, all dating back over 12,000 years to the Neolithic Stone Age. These are not natural caves. They are man-made, painstakingly excavated from the earth using nothing more than stone tools and bare hands. The sheer scale of this collective undertaking is almost beyond comprehension, representing millions of hours of labor by countless generations. What could have possibly driven these early farming communities to undertake such a monumental task? The tunnels themselves are remarkably consistent in design. They are often narrow, sometimes only wide enough for a single person to crawl through, and they frequently open into small, rounded chambers. The walls are smoothed and reinforced, showing clear signs of careful engineering to prevent collapse. This was not a haphazard digging project. It was a coordinated, continent-wide effort that persisted for millennia. The most immediate theory for their use is one of survival. The world of our Neolithic ancestors was a dangerous place, filled with predators like wolves and bears, not to mention rival human groups. These tunnels would have offered perfect refuge, a place to vanish from immediate danger. They could also have served as a buffer against the era's harsh climate swings, providing a constant, cool temperature for storing precious food supplies like grain, safe from spoilage and scavengers. Yet the narrow, winding nature of many passages suggests a purpose far deeper than mere storage or shelter. Crawling through these dark, cramped spaces is a profoundly disorienting experience, a journey that separates you completely from the world above. This has led many researchers to propose a spiritual function. The tunnels may have been used for rites of passage or shamanic rituals, a symbolic descent into the underworld. An initiate would enter the familiar world of the living and crawl through the earth's belly, perhaps emerging reborn into a new social or spiritual status. This idea of an underground journey is a powerful archetype found in mythologies across the globe. The very act of navigating the darkness could have been a transformative experience, a way to connect with chthonic deities or ancestral spirits believed to reside deep within the planet. This sprawling, subterranean network presents a humbling picture of Neolithic Europe. It was not a land of isolated, primitive villages, but a continent subtly connected by a shared, underground architecture. It speaks of a common understanding, a unified spiritual or practical need that transcended local cultures and languages. The tunnels are a silent testament to a different kind of monument, one built not to reach for the skies, but to explore the mysteries hidden deep within the earth itself. A different kind of spiral appears on another artifact shrouded in modern myth. The Lolodov plate is a stone disc said to have been discovered in Nepal, its surface carved with a scene that seems ripped from contemporary science fiction. A central figure with a large, hairless head, almond-shaped eyes, and a slender body stands in a pose of contemplation. Next to this being, a vast spiral design swirls outward, uncannily resembling a spiral galaxy. The image is stark and compelling, a perfect visual for the idea that ancient artists witnessed visitors from the stars and recorded their likeness in stone. It fits a popular narrative so neatly it feels almost too good to be true, and that is precisely the problem. The provenance of the Lolodov plate is a shadowy trail that leads directly into the world of artifact forgery. It first came to prominence through a Polish businessman named T. Lolodov in the 1990s, who provided no verifiable details of its excavation. There is no recorded archaeological context, no associated artifacts from a dig site, and no scientific analysis to confirm its age. Its entire history is tied to the black market, where unprovenanced objects can be sold for high prices based on their sensational appeal rather than their academic merit. The plate's design, while visually striking, lacks the stylistic fingerprints of known Nepalese or Tibetan art from any period. The depiction of the being is a near-perfect match for the modern archetype of the grey alien, a cultural image that became ubiquitous only in the latter half of the 20th century following popular UFO reports. The galactic spiral, while a natural form, is rendered in a way that feels more symbolic of our current understanding of astronomy than an ancient one. Despite these overwhelming red flags, the Lolodov plate persists as a favorite piece of evidence in certain circles. Its power lies in its simplicity and its direct visual communication. It requires no translation, no complex interpretation. It shows what looks like an alien, and it shows what looks like a galaxy, creating an instant, intuitive connection for the viewer. This immediate resonance allows it to bypass critical scrutiny, flourishing in a space where the desire for proof is stronger than the demand for provenance. The plate's enduring fame is a testament not to ancient astronauts, but to the potent allure of a well-crafted story, and our own deep-seated wish to find our modern mysteries reflected in the distant past. Off the coast of Japan's westernmost island, the ocean conceals a structure that blurs the line between geology and architecture. Lying under 100 feet of water near Yonaguni is a massive monolithic formation, a series of stark, flat terraces and sharp, 90-degree angles that rise from the seabed like a sunken ziggurat. Discovered in the 1980s, the Yonaguni monument immediately sparked a fierce debate. Is this a natural wonder or the crumbling remnant of a civilization lost to rising seas? The structure is immense, stretching nearly 500 feet long and rising over 80 feet high. Its most striking features are its perfectly flat, level surfaces and the clean, sharp edges where its terraces meet. There are what appear to be two grand parallel pillars, a trench that runs in a straight line for dozens of feet, and a prominent, isolated rock that looks uncannily like a massive human head. Proponents of the artificial theory point to these details as clear evidence of human hands. They identify what they call a star-shaped platform, a retaining wall that seems to buttress the main structure, and even carved reliefs that some interpret as animals or writing. The most compelling argument is the existence of two round holes, each about 2 feet deep, positioned close together on a high terrace, which look like they could have held massive posts. If this is a man-made pyramid or ceremonial complex, it would have been constructed on dry land, meaning it is at least 10,000 years old, from a time when sea levels were dramatically lower. This would place its construction in a prehistoric era that rewrites the history of Japanese civilization and human architectural achievement in the Pacific. Geologists, however, offer a powerful counter-argument rooted in the natural processes of the Earth itself. They explain that the monument is composed of sandstone, a sedimentary rock that naturally fractures along straight plains and flat surfaces. The entire region is seismically hyperactive, constantly shaken by earthquakes. This tectonic activity creates these clean, geometric fractures in the bedrock. The relentless tidal currents of the area then act as a master sculptor, scouring and eroding the fractured stone, amplifying the angles and smoothing the surfaces over thousands of years. This process, known as shore platform erosion, can create astonishingly regular formations without any human intervention. The so-called carved steps and terraces are simply the result of different layers of rock eroding at different rates. The animal reliefs are likely natural weathering patterns, and the holes could be places where softer mineral deposits were scoured out, leaving behind empty sockets. So we are presented with two competing visions of the same underwater landscape. One sees the drowned ruins of an ancient, unknown culture, a testament to human ingenuity swallowed by the ocean. The other sees a masterpiece of natural geology, a testament to the immense sculpting power of water, wind, and tectonic force. The Yonaguni monument does not yield its secret easily. Its silent, ambiguous forms force us to confront a fundamental question about our own perception. Are we seeing the ghosts of our ancestors in the stone, or are we witnessing the profound and beautiful artistry of the planet itself, creating structures that mock our own and challenge our need to find ourselves in every corner of the ancient world? The ocean floor holds shapes that defy even the wildest geological imagination. In the summer of 2011, a Swedish ocean exploration team led by Peter Lindberg was using sonar to search for old shipwrecks in the Baltic Sea. What they found instead was an image that would ignite a global firestorm of speculation. Lying at a depth of nearly 300 feet was a massive, circular object roughly 60 meters in diameter. Its sonar profile was unlike anything seen before, featuring a distinct raised tail structure and a series of what looked like stairways or runways leading up to its center. The most immediate and irresistible comparison was to the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars, a crashed starship resting silently on the seabed. But the mystery only deepened when the team returned for a closer look. Their divers reported that their electrical equipment, including satellite phones and a new underwater camera, would inexplicably cease functioning whenever they ventured within 200 meters of the object. Once they moved away, the equipment would power back on as if nothing had happened. This bizarre electrical interference added a layer of high-tech intrigue to an already baffling discovery. The explanations offered by experts range from the mundane to the extraordinary. Geologists point to the last ice age, suggesting the anomaly is a rare but entirely natural glacial deposit. They propose it could be a large mound of moraine, a collection of rocks and debris transported and then abandoned by a retreating glacier, which subsequent currents have sculpted into this unusual geometric form. The interference, they argue, could be caused by a large concentration of magnetic rock within the formation. Others have proposed it is a man-made relic from a more recent conflict, perhaps a secret World War II anti-submarine device or a sunken German warship, its superstructure creating the strange silhouette. Then, of course, there is the theory that has captured the public's imagination, the idea that this is a genuine unidentified submerged object, a crashed UFO that has lain hidden in the cold, dark water for centuries, its dormant power source still emitting enough energy to disrupt our primitive electronics. The Baltic Sea anomaly remains a perfect Rorschach test on the ocean floor. Do we see in its fuzzy sonar image the ghost of a forgotten glacier, the wreckage of a secret war, or the ultimate proof that we are not alone? Without a definitive and far more expensive excavation, it remains one of the sea's most tantalizing and unproven secrets. Even the most modern stone monuments can echo the cryptic whispers of the deepest past. In 1979, a set of massive granite slabs appeared on a remote hilltop in Elbert County, Georgia. Known as the Georgia Guidestones, this structure stood nearly 20 feet tall, its 6 stones weighing over 100 tons in total. It was clearly a modern creation, yet its form was profoundly ancient, a stark, grey echo of megalithic traditions that stretch back to sites like Stonehenge and Göbekli Tepe. The stones were arranged with astronomical precision, with features aligned to track the sun's solstices and equinoxes, and a small hole drilled to frame the North Star. But the true mystery was not their construction but their message. The slabs were inscribed with a set of 10 principles, carved in 8 different modern languages, and a shorter message in 4 ancient scripts was found on a capstone. These guidelines advocated for a future age of reason, with directives to maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature, to guide reproduction wisely, to unite humanity with a new universal language, and to rule passion and faith with tempered reason. The message was both utopian and deeply unsettling, a blueprint for a global society rising from the ashes of our current one. The origin of the Guidestones was as enigmatic as its inscriptions. It was commissioned by a man or group using the pseudonym R.C. Christian, a name heavy with symbolic meaning. He approached a local granite company, paid for the entire project upfront, and then vanished back into obscurity, leaving no trace of his true identity or the organization he represented. For over 4 decades, the monument stood as a polarizing landmark, seen by some as a thoughtful guide for a sustainable future, and by others as a sinister manifesto for global control and depopulation. Its mysterious origins fueled endless speculation, tying it to secret societies, occult groups, and New Age prophecies. Then, in 2022, the mystery took a violent turn. Part of the structure was severely damaged in a bombing, and the remaining stones were later fully dismantled for safety reasons. A modern megalith was erased, its physical presence gone almost as suddenly as it appeared. The Georgia Guidestones, though contemporary, share a fundamental kinship with the prehistoric relics we have explored. They represent humanity's timeless, powerful urge to carve its beliefs and warnings into the most permanent medium it knows, stone, casting a message into the future like a bottle into a vast temporal ocean. Their destruction only deepens their enigmatic power, leaving us to wonder who truly speaks to us from the silence of such monuments and what they hoped we would become. A single piece of linen cloth holds one of the most scrutinized and debated images in human history. The Shroud of Turin is a length of fabric measuring approximately 14 feet long, and on its surface is the faint, straw-colored imprint of a man. This is not a painting. It is a full-length, front and back negative image of a muscular, bearded male who appears to have endured horrific trauma, with wounds consistent with the biblical account of the crucifixion of Jesus. There are marks on the wrists and feet, a flow of blood from the scalp, and a severe wound in the side. The image is incredibly detailed, showing three-dimensional information that no medieval artist could have conceived, let alone rendered. For millions of the faithful, this is the actual burial cloth of Christ, a divine relic of the resurrection. For science, it is an enigma wrapped in a mystery. The shroud's documented history begins in the 1350s in Liry, France, but its journey before that is a matter of legend and fierce debate. The object itself was subjected to the most intense scientific investigation imaginable during the late 20th century. A team of researchers known as the Shroud of Turin Research Project was granted direct access, and their findings only deepened the puzzle. They confirmed the blood stains are real, and they determined the image is not composed of any known pigment. It resides only on the very topmost microfibers of the linen threads, as if it were produced by a brief, intense burst of radiation that caused a molecular change, a form of dehydration and oxidation. This is not how any artist works. How this precise, photo-negative, three-dimensional image was formed on a piece of cloth remains a question no one has been able to answer with a repeatable experiment. Then came the moment that seemed to solve the mystery for good. In 1988, with permission from the Vatican, small samples were cut from a corner of the shroud and sent to 3 independent laboratories in Oxford, Zurich, and Tucson for radiocarbon dating. The results were unanimous and shocking. They dated the linen to between 1260 and 1390 AD. This placed the shroud's origin firmly in the medieval period, a time when forgery of religious relics was rampant. For many, the case was closed. The shroud was a brilliant, albeit inexplicable, medieval fake. Yet the story did not end there. The radiocarbon dating itself became the subject of intense controversy. Critics pointed out that the sample taken was from a corner of the shroud, an area that would have been handled and repaired most often over the centuries. They hypothesized that the sample was contaminated by newer carbon from a later weaving repair, or from a bioplastic coating created by bacteria and fungi that had grown on the linen fibers over the ages, which would throw the carbon dating significantly off. Some textile experts have even argued the weave of the shroud is more consistent with fabrics from the 1st century than the Middle Ages. So we are left with a profound conflict, a collision of faith, science, and history. The scientific data from one test declares it a medieval object, while the physical and chemical properties of the image itself defy any known medieval or even modern artistic technique. Is the Shroud of Turin the most elaborate and technically impossible forgery ever created? Or is it a genuine 1st century relic that our science has not yet been able to fully comprehend? It is a relic that asks us not just to question the methods of the past, but the absolute limits of our own understanding in the present. The shimmering illusion of the crystal skulls presents a mystery not of ancient origins but of modern desire. These hauntingly beautiful objects, carved from single blocks of clear or milky quartz, began appearing in the late 19th century, often attributed to Mesoamerican cultures like the Maya or Aztecs. Dealers claimed they were relics from a lost world, possessing strange energies and esoteric knowledge. The most famous, known as the Mitchell-Hedges skull, was said to have been discovered in the 1920s by adventurer F. A. Mitchell-Hedges in a Mayan temple in Belize. Its perfect proportions and detachable, articulated jawbone seem to defy the capabilities of ancient stoneworkers, suggesting a technology far beyond what history allowed. The legend grew, fueled by claims that the skulls could store information, emit light from within, or even reveal future events to those who gazed into their depths. They became icons of alternative archaeology, symbols of a past where spirituality and advanced science were one. For decades, the question hung in the air. Were these flawless crystal carvings genuine pre-Columbian masterpieces, or were they something else entirely? The answer came not from jungle temples, but from the sterile light of electron microscopes. When scientists were finally permitted to examine several of the most prominent skulls, including one held by the British Museum and another by the Smithsonian, the truth was etched into the crystal itself. The analysis revealed minute, parallel grooves left by rotating wheels coated with diamond or corundum abrasive, the unmistakable signature of modern jewelers' tools. These high-speed rotary instruments did not exist in the Americas before the Spanish conquest. The skulls were not ancient at all, but sophisticated 19th-century fakes, likely produced in workshops in Germany or Idar Oberstein, a center for the European gem-cutting industry. The romantic story of their discovery unraveled completely, with the Mitchell-Hedges skull itself now widely believed to have been purchased at a Sotheby's auction in 1943. Yet the debunking of their historical authenticity has done little to dim their powerful allure. Why do these modern forgeries continue to captivate us so deeply? Their power lies not in their age, but in their perfect form, a human face rendered in a material that is both solid and seemingly ethereal. They tap into a universal fascination with crystal and its perceived properties of energy and clarity. They are blank slates, and we project our own hopes, fears, and mysteries onto their polished, unblinking surfaces. The crystal skulls are a different kind of relic, a testament not to a lost civilization, but to our own enduring need for wonder, a need so strong it can transform a clever forgery into a modern legend. A forged jawbone and a stained skull became the most celebrated scientific fraud of the 20th century. In a gravel pit in Piltdown, England, amateur archaeologist Charles Dawson made an astonishing announcement in 1912. He claimed to have found the fossilized remains of the missing link, a creature he called Eoanthropus dawsoni, or Dawson's Dawn Man. The fragments consisted of a thick, human-like brain case and an ape-like jaw with 2 teeth, both stained a uniform dark brown to match the local gravel. The scientific world was electrified. Here, seemingly, was the proof of a long-sought ancestor, a being with the brain of a modern human and the primitive jaw of an ape, exactly as many theorists had predicted. For over 4 decades, Piltdown Man held a revered place in textbooks and museums. It was presented as a cornerstone of human evolution, a British hero fossil that conveniently supported the prevailing idea that a large brain evolved first in our lineage. The problem was, it was all a lie. The entire specimen was a cunning fabrication, a human cranium from the medieval period deliberately paired with the jaw of an orangutan, with the teeth carefully filed down to mimic human wear. The bones and accompanying tools had been chemically treated and stained to appear ancient. The hoax was so skillfully executed that it survived scrutiny for 41 years, derailing research and sending generations of scientists down a blind alley. The eventual exposure in 1953 was a result of new, more rigorous scientific dating methods. Fluorine analysis proved the skull and jaw were of different ages, and closer examination revealed the file marks on the teeth. The revelation was a seismic shock to the scientific community, a profound embarrassment that forced a complete re-evaluation of humanity's family tree. The true impact of Piltdown, however, was not just the fraud itself, but the shadow it cast. It revealed a dangerous susceptibility to confirmation bias, where the desire to find a specific kind of evidence can blind even the most brilliant minds to obvious inconsistencies. The hoax eroded public trust in scientific institutions and fueled skepticism that lingers to this day. It stands as a permanent cautionary tale, a reminder that the path to understanding our past is not just about finding answers, but about constantly questioning the evidence itself, no matter how perfectly it seems to fit the story we want to tell. The final relic takes us to a quiet mound in Romania, where a handful of fired clay fragments threaten to upend the very origins of civilization itself. Discovered at a Neolithic site called Tartaria, these small, inscribed tablets date back to an astonishing 5300 BC. They are unassuming objects, but the symbols etched into their surfaces are anything but simple. We see a series of abstract marks, including a striking bull's head, a goat, and a series of linear and curved signs that bear a haunting resemblance to early Sumerian cuneiform. The problem is their age. The Tartaria tablets are centuries older than the oldest known writing from Mesopotamia, the place long hailed as the cradle of literacy. If these symbols constitute a true writing system, then the story of humanity's greatest invention, the ability to record language, did not begin in the fertile river valleys of the Middle East, but in the forests and plains of prehistoric Europe. The implications are revolutionary, suggesting a previously unknown center of cultural sophistication that flickered into existence long before the rise of the great ancient empires. The academic debate over these tablets is as fierce as it is fundamental. On one side are those who see in the carefully arranged symbols a proto-writing system. They argue that tablets are not random scribbles, but a structured set of signs that could represent an early form of accounting, perhaps a tally of livestock or goods, or even the names of people or places. The repetition of certain symbols and their grouping into what looks like sequences lends weight to this idea. It suggests a community that had moved beyond simple pictograms and was developing a symbolic code to convey complex information across time and space. This was not yet full literacy capable of recording poetry or law, but it could have been the crucial, foundational step, the spark that would eventually lead to it. The opposing view is far more cautious. Many mainstream archaeologists contend that the markings are purely decorative or symbolic, with no linguistic meaning whatsoever. They could be the personal marks of a potter, ritual symbols used in a religious ceremony, or even a form of ancient pattern making with no more linguistic content than the designs on a piece of modern jewelry. The fact that so few tablets have been found, and that no subsequent examples from the region show a development of these symbols into a full-blown script, is a powerful argument against their status as writing. Without a larger corpus of text to compare, without the Rosetta Stone that would allow us to crack their code, the Tartaria tablets remain stubbornly silent, their message locked away. This debate is about more than just a few pieces of clay. It is a battle over a narrative. Did civilization, with all its hallmarks like writing, emerge in one brilliant flash in Sumer and then spread outward? Or was it a phenomenon that sparked independently in multiple places, a slow-burning fire of human ingenuity flickering across the ancient world? The Tartaria tablets sit at the heart of this question. They are either the ghost of a forgotten beginning, a lost path in the story of human communication, or they are one of history's most compelling red herrings, a beautiful coincidence of shape and symbol that teases us with a possibility that never was. They challenge us to wonder what truly separates a random mark from a word, and whether the dawn of writing was a single sunrise or the first faint light of many days breaking across a much wider world. These 30 relics stand as a collective challenge to the comfortable timeline we have built for ourselves. From a hammer encased in ancient stone to a computer built before its time, and from maps of ice-free continents to temples erected by hunter-gatherers, each object whispers a tantalizing possibility. They suggest that the story of human progress is not a straight upward line, but a complex tapestry woven with threads of forgotten knowledge, devastating collapses, and brilliant sparks of genius that flickered out, only to be rediscovered millennia later. This journey into the past reveals a profound human desire to find mystery in the remnants left behind, to see the ghosts of advanced civilizations or celestial visitors in every unexplained groove and glyph. Yet it also underscores the vital importance of rigorous science, the patient work that separates genuine historical anomalies from clever forgeries and natural wonders. This delicate dance between open-minded wonder and skeptical inquiry is what truly pushes our understanding forward, so we are left with one final, haunting question as we look to the future. What relic, still buried deep beneath the earth or lost at the bottom of the sea, might be unearthed tomorrow, waiting to completely reshape the story we tell about ourselves. Let us know which of these ancient puzzles captivated you most in the comments below. The artifacts we have explored are far more than a collection of curiosities. They represent a deep and fundamental human drive, a need to look into the past and find not just answers but better questions. Why are we so captivated by a hammer in stone or a map of an impossible coastline? It begins with our innate and powerful curiosity, an instinct that propelled our ancestors to explore new lands and now pushes us to explore the depths of time. We are natural detectives, and an unsolved case from 1,000,000 years ago is the ultimate cold case file, a puzzle that challenges our intellect and our imagination in equal measure. There is a profound thrill in the unknown, a sense of wonder that a perfectly explained world simply cannot provide. A history that is tidy and fully understood feels small, almost claustrophobic. But a history punctuated by anomalies, by objects that refuse to fit, feels vast and filled with possibility. It suggests that our story is not yet fully written, that there are still grand secrets waiting to be uncovered. This longing for a more wondrous narrative is also a subtle rebellion against the mundane. The idea that a sophisticated civilization could rise and fall, leaving only a single rusted gear behind, is far more romantic than a slow, linear progression from stone tools to smartphones. It introduces an element of epic tragedy and lost glory, a sense that the past was as dramatic and unpredictable as any fantasy novel. These puzzling relics tap into our deepest hopes and fears about our own place in the universe. Could they be evidence that we are not the first, that other human societies reached heights we can barely comprehend, only to vanish without a trace? Or do they hint at something even more profound, that we have never been alone, that the cosmos has always been within reach? Ultimately, these ancient mysteries hold up a mirror. We do not just study the Antikythera Mechanism or the stones of Göbekli Tepe, we see ourselves in them. We see our own ingenuity, our own fragility, and our own relentless desire to leave a mark, to send a message to the future. These objects are that message from the past, blurred and fragmented by time. Our fascination is the reply, a testament to the unbreakable thread of curiosity that connects us across the millennia, reminding us that the greatest relic of all may be the human mind itself, forever striving to solve the beautiful, endless puzzle of where we came from.